Sports card content creators who are kind of watchdogs of the sports card community. Are these helpful for the community, or are they more petty finger pointers who are really contributing nothing? Let's discuss. All right, so first let's define what I mean, what I'm actually asking in this question. I'm asking this question generally because it comes up a lot. There's a lot of content creators who are creating for the purpose of sharing about this or that scam, for things for you to watch out for, where they're looking, is this business above board? Is this individual above board? Is this thing a scam? And whether these channels are contributing something really important and meaningful, or if it's really kind of petty stuff. And I would say it can absolutely be either one. Now, a lot of them, I think, are contributing something very important to the community. One of my favorite of these hobby watchdog channels is Dan the Cardman. He will share something that's happening, and he'll share his perspective in a very straightforward way, in a very no hidden agendas way. He's not overly trying to point out and point blame at this person or that person too much, but he's trying to share some knowledge and analyze it in the way his mind works, which is, he has very logical thinking, and he's kind of trying to take the evidence and come up with what is happening here and share it with his audience. And I think that's great. On the other hand, there's other people who will do that sometimes, and other times it will kind of shift towards more of a petty finger pointing kind of thing. And I do feel like the way that the YouTube algorithm works encourages some of the petty finger pointing stuff, which is kind of unfortunate because, really, in order for your channel to be able to get more views, you have to be spitting out content consistently. And, I don't think there is enough scammy stuff happening to create videos at a quick enough pace to satisfy that algorithm. So sometimes content creators have to get into the petty world, have to end up being nitpicky about smaller things that really shouldn't matter because they need to create content. So I think that's one thing that YouTube does that's not helpful. If there is a space to share something that's actually happening that needs to be shared with the community, wonderful, that video should be made. But if there's nothing else that happens for another 2 or 3 months that really matters, then there really doesn't need to be another video about this or that little thing, because it could become petty. And I think that's where the stuff comes in, that's where the balance comes in. It's a little bit hard because some of these channels can go back and forth between very important stuff that's being shared to very petty stuff. And I feel like that it hides their important stuff within the petty stuff, and it makes it harder to find the important stuff. You know what I mean? Then the stuff that's really important, that genuinely should be heard by everybody in the community, that can get hidden in there. And the only people who might end up listening to it are the people who are preaching to the choir kind of people who are looking for scams in everything, who are cynical about everything, who only see the negative in everything. But it can end up being that the only people hearing the stuff that's really important are those people, when really everybody should be hearing this. But when it's mixed in with all this other petty stuff, it can be easy to be overlooked. So I think this is where the balance comes in. How do you create content that is watchdog related, that is sharing the important stuff, that is really making sure that the companies are staying above board, and if they're not, that they're being called out for it, and that people are hearing that and listening to that. But at the same time, avoid getting into the individual attacks, avoid getting into the petty stuff, avoid getting into stuff that's based on no evidence and that is shallow and that doesn't matter and that's just petty. How to get this and avoid this is a challenge that I think a lot of content creators who are in that watchdog space are facing. And I don't know how reflective they all are on that. I mean, I think some of them are. That's why, again, I go back to Dan the Cardman a lot, because I think, the way he's approaching it is a way that is, though maybe he's a bit more cynical about things than I am personally, and sometimes he might read into things in a way that's a little bit I don't read into it quite that way in this scenario here, but I can see his logic every time, and I can see the string of thinking behind why he's thinking the way he's thinking every time. And it's not really based on shallow petty stuff. He keeps the individual squabbles out of it, and he just focuses on this stream of logic. So even if I disagree with him, I can still listen to him and appreciate that. So he seems to be able to do it a little bit better than most. And maybe some other hobby content kind of watchdogs, maybe they can share this important stuff for a Hobby Watchdog video, and then at other times they can share some other things that are not related to Hobby Watchdog stuff and just related to their engagement with the hobby in this way or that way or other topics. And then when there is something genuinely important to share, then they'll share it. You know, my own channel, like, I would never call myself a Hobby Watchdog channel, but if there is an element, a story that needs to be shared and it's not getting shared, like, I would have no problem sharing it and being like, whoa, watch out for this, be aware of this. You know, I think that would be good to do, but only when it's really truly important. You know, I wouldn't want to get into the petty squabbles of things. You know, and my own content is a little bit more just general kind of educational kind of stuff related to the hobby. It's less about the news, you know, like some of these channels that are looking at Hobby Watchdog stuff. They're more like news channels, but like, you know, analyzing that news kind of thing. And that's not quite what I've been doing up to this point. Anyway, so just to answer the question that I proposed originally, are Hobby Watchdog channels good for the hobby, or are they just, you know, getting into this realm of petty shallowness? And I would say yes to both. They can be very good. I would just encourage Hobby Watchdog channels to just be self-reflective, and for those of us who are watching those channels, to also be self-reflective about which videos we're choosing to watch, what we're choosing to believe, making sure that, you know, that when we're watching something, we're identifying the objective elements of it, and we're seeing like what are just like kind of the petty things that are based on nothing, and that we develop the skills to be able to pick out, you know, truth from falsehood, and to be able to see what is real from what is just perspective and just preference of something. And that we're getting better at that over time. I think that's on us as the listener to develop that skill and to develop that ability. And for the content creator, it's also important, I think, for them to be self-reflective. So it's on both people to just, you know, gradually improve in these spaces. So anyway, that's it for this video. I'll see you in the next one. Peace.